10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All systems go.
You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything
Could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
Hey everyone, good morning. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. Glad to be here with you. Thankful that you're here with us. As usual, we're live on terrestrial radio, 96.7 FM, CKLU, each and every weekday morning between 7:30 and 8:30 a.m. We're also streaming at cklu.ca on the internet. And you just click on the Radio Player Canada app. You can stream us. If you download the same Radio Player Canada app, you can take us with you and listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. While you're there, just make sure to check out the merch that we got. Help support the radio, keep the lights on, the airwaves open. And if you already got the merch or you don't need what we have kind of thing, you just hit the support us, donate now button, and whatever you have the means of doing to support the station, it's basically supported by people like you. You are the you in CKLU. It's your campus and community radio station, been around since 1984. And thanks to yourself, it can be around for many, many more years. So we're going to dive right in this morning, let you know that we're also live on Facebook.com/Sudbury News, YouTube.com/Sudbury News. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow the channel, the page. We'll also be found on demand on X.com/Sudbury News, along with the other two platforms immediately following the show today. Mainly comment. We'll do our best to get your comments up on the screen today. We got a special guest who's basically waiting in the green room. It's Judy Strawn. We've had on the show rather recently talking about the Sudbury Arts Council's initiative to have a commemorative book on the 50 most influential people in the arts in Sudbury. And we'll maybe get a follow-up on that when we talk to Judy. But she's here to talk about something else, a really cool fundraising effort for this very station, CKLU, and she's involved in this amongst many other things, as we'll get into in the interview. But let's just kick it off with a little bit of weather from our what is it called? Environment Canada's forecast for Sudbury, and then we'll be back with an interview with Judy, and we'll basically then cover some of the local headlines and more when we come back right after this. Stay tuned. It's going to be a great show, I promise, or your money back. And Sudbury weather brought to you by Voyager Tire. Voyager Tire, great people, great products, great prices. Let them know we sent you. You get a 10% discount on already discounted name brand prices. Currently, it is 2 degrees. Feels like 2 degrees. It's mainly clear out there. And today, sunny, becoming a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon. Moderate wind, high of 19. So nice and warm. Yes, we'll get there eventually. Now, for tomorrow, a 40% chance of showers. Remember, that's a 60% chance that we won't get showers, so don't worry too much. And then again, a 40% chance of showers. High of 17 tomorrow, high of 11 on Wednesday. Then, hopefully, we'll have a repeat of what we had on Sunday for Thursday and Friday. Sunny, 13 on Thursday, 20 and sunny on Friday. Can you imagine if the forecast holds out for that? Then a 40% chance of showers on Saturday, high of 19. High of 18 with a mix of sun and cloud on Sunday. Look at your satellite, as you can see. Taken as of 4 a.m. this morning. Rather clear over northern Ontario. A little bit of clouds below us in the southern portion of the area. So that is your Sudbury weather, brought to you by Voyager Tire. We'll be back with Judy Strawn, your comments, and more right after this. So, as promised, we have Judy on the show. And Judy, good morning to you. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm doing very well. How are you doing today?
You know what? I really love just getting up each and every morning. And so I'm doing just as good as I think I do pretty much any morning. And the reason why I get a positive start to my day is doing this show on CKLU because I just find, and I feel that everyone should experience this where you get up in the morning, you gotta, be a little sharp right away. You can't, be sluggish because you're going to be on. You gotta, you got to talk about something that people are actually going to want to listen to. And so there's a little bit of pressure, but at the same time, it's a good exercise for the brain. And I just really love this audience that we've been kind of accumulating, this community of people that are part of the show, really, pretty much. So they're part of the conversation too. It's like getting together with a bunch of friends at the coffee shop in the morning, but I still have a full-time job, so people aren't able to do that until we're retired usually. But
And
so
I'm
I
happy
really
to be
appreciate it,
joining you
and
your
I know
friends.
you can kind of get my drift kind of thing of what I'm saying. It's a long way to say how I'm doing this morning. It's just I really appreciate the show and this platform and the opportunity to talk to people like yourself and get the word out on some pretty important things. But Judy, tell us a little bit about yourself. So people who aren't familiar with you, give us a little bit of background. I know you've been on the show before a few times, and I know pretty much everyone should know who you are because you have a show on Eastlink. You're out there in the community. You're involved in many things. Could you just let our audience know, for those who might not, a little bit of your background before we get into what we're going to be talking about today?
I'll just say my background is theater. My background is the arts. I spent my first working life teaching English and theater and drama. My second working life, 17 years at the Sudbury Theatre Centre, doing all kinds of things there, from publicity to education to writing to directing. Then the next part of my life, I guess this is the third part of my working life, which is all volunteer work. And one of the organizations I volunteer for is CKLU. And as you said, we both value CKLU, and I am ready to tell you about the next fundraising fun effort that we have.
You do such a good job of giving, your background. I would take probably an hour to kind of like, okay, what a little bit about myself. Okay, I was born and wherever, and then I grew up. But no, you're very concise on your background, and you want to get down to business, which is what's going on with CKLU. And this is not so we're having a fundraising event, but this is like the second version of it. So tell us a little bit about what this fundraising event is, why it's so cool, but we've had one run of this before, and so we can talk about how the first one went, which is pretty cool.
So I like stories, and I'm going to say every one of your listeners likes stories. I mean, if you didn't like stories, why would you watch things on television? Why would you go to movies? All of that. It's all storytelling. And I love listening to real stories, and really podcasts or whatever, any platform about stories, I'm good. So I started to think, why does Sudbury not have something like they have in the United States called The Moth, where people get up and tell their own stories? And I thought about that for months. And I talked to Marcus Schwabe, who works at CBC Radio. He's the morning guy. And we sat down one morning and had coffee. And I said, I have this idea and I don't know whether to move forward with it. I don't know whether it'll work. And he absolutely loved the idea because, of course, CBC Radio likes storytelling as well. So with a little bit of encouragement, I did wait a few months before I got the courage to do it, because anytime you're doing something for the first time, you try to figure out everything that can possibly go wrong before you ever venture into it. So finally, I decided to do it last year. We did it in June, and I invited particular people aboard. Like Marcus said, why don't you just open it up and have anybody who wants to come in and tell a story, they can. And I thought, no, that's too scary for me. I don't know what people might tell. And this needs to be curated. And so I sat down with a number of people that I know who I knew would have good stories. and some people who are well known in the community, like a Kevin Kloss, who we all know is one of the Northern Ontario's, best singers. And I thought, well, you've been in a band for years, you're going to have a story. So I curated each one of those people to make sure the story was going to be a really good one and people would want to hear. And then we got Tony Simpkin aboard to play music that night. We rented the Indie Cinema, which is downtown Sudbury, as you know, across from Sudbury Secondary School. And we just kind of set it up as a not really, really formal, stuffy anything. You can go to concessions, you can get popcorn and pop, or they actually have spirits there as well. And you can sit back and enjoy these true stories. So that's kind of how it started last year. And there were a number of people who said to me during the course of this year, are you ever going to do that again? And I said, no, that was a one-off. No, we won't do it again. And then as people asked about it, I thought, well, why are we not doing it again? Maybe we should do it again. And then I started again. The brain starts going, well, who would be able to tell good stories this year? So we have a wonderful slate of stories coming up this Wednesday night, May the 7th at 7 p.m. at Indie Cinema. So there you go.
So this Wednesday night, 7 p.m., Indie Cinema. So do we know anything about the people that are going to be speaking in this particular?
All right. I will pull back the curtain. I will pull back the curtain right now. I won't tell you too much about their stories, but I sat down with each one of them to hear what they would talk about. So when I sat down with Peter Williams, and you might know Peter Williams because he used to be a CBC radio person. He also did the Fox News on CTV. So he's kind of a relatively known person, and he is a real supporter of CKLU. By the way, he's on the board of CKLU. So he was a really easy touch. When we sat down and he told me his story, I said, are you crazy? You did that? And I was shocked at what he did for a good story. And I'm just going to say it's the only story that night that to me has a life and death overtone. Clearly he lives on, but his story I think will captivate many. I sat down with Melanie Dahl, who you will know perhaps as well. She was on radio up until last November, I think 25 years with Q92.
Yes.
And I thought, well, Melanie has some good stories too. So we sat down and we talked about the bravest thing that she has ever done in her life. And when I heard her story, I said, are you crazy? I would never do that. You couldn't pay me enough to do that. So she's going to tell the story of the bravest thing she ever did in her life. Then I sat down with Mark Gentili, and you may or may not know that name, but he is the editor of Sudbury.com and has been for a number of years. So he's the reason that all the stories are being pumped out on Sudbury.com. And so he's going to have a story. Well, I loved his story. When we sat down, he told me the story of the first news assignment he ever had as a cub reporter. I'm telling you, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It was funny. It was really a good story. And so he's going to tell his cub reporter story. After that, I don't know how he ever continued in the news, but he did. And the final sort of media person, you may not know her. Her name is Chelsea Papineau, and people would know her if they watch the CTV telethon, and she always does sort of the social media aspect of the telethon and tells the stories and gets the calls and whatever. And I know Chelsea Papineau from the Sudbury Theatre Centre. We worked together, and so I knew that she had a huge change in her life recently. And I sat down with her to see how much she would share of that particular personal story. And I think people are going to find it really interesting what is going on in Chelsea's life. So those are kind of our four media people who are telling stories. Excuse me. The other one that you're going to know is Alessandro Costantini.
Yes.
Excuse me. So for those who don't know Alessandro, he is the artistic director of Yes Theatre. They work out of the Sudbury Theatre Centre building. They have done a phenomenal job in theatre in this community in the last several years. And I thought, well, if anybody has a story, it'll be Alessandro Costantini. Now, honestly, what I expected was that he would tell a story about theatre, something that happened to him in theatre. No, not at all. He is going to tell a story that is going to take you from Canada to Italy, and that's all I'll say.
Oh, wow.
Then I approached Layla Barsanti. Now, she's a name you will not know. She is only 17 years old. She is a female goalie playing on male hockey teams.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. So let us find out a little bit about what that life is like. The other person that I hadn't known before, and I sat down with him, his name is Jeremy John. That is his performance name. And I met him first. He writes books, and the book that he wrote that stuck in my head was called something like Stories So Funny They'll Make You Poop Your Pants. So clearly they're children's stories, and I saw him do a presentation at Wordstock Literary Festival, and I thought, I bet you he has a story. So he is going to tell a story about something that happened to him on stage one night. Our last two storytellers in this group of 9 one of them is Pierre Laframboise, and Pierre Laframboise is just an incredible arts person. He's a wonderful musician. He makes drums. He's sort of this master gardener who thinks you should grow, what you eat. But he's a filmmaker as well. He's constantly making film, and I run into him in the film world all the time. I've known him for quite a long time. And I said, Pierre, you hinted at a story last time we talked. And I said, it's such a personal story. I said, would you ever consider sharing that on our story night? And we sat down and had coffee, and he went over the story again with me. And it's so unbelievable, and it's so moving that I'm impressed that he will share that story. And the final story, the final one, is Kelsey Rutledge. She works at Dynamic Earth, and I knew Kelsey from the time she was growing up, and she went through theater classes at the Sudbury Theatre Centre. And I was at Dynamic Earth, and she was doing a presentation on stage. And when I watched her, I thought, well, Kelsey, you are ready. And she's going to tell a story about something dramatic that happened to her family in London, England. So there you have it, 9 stories. Have I hooked you yet?
Well, the thing is, the whole hook is just telling enough, to just give a little piece and then saying, oh, then that's it. So everyone wants to hear the story when you explain, oh, they had the worst experience ever, or I would never do something. You can't wait. Oh, you just, and then everyone's like, well, tell me already. Tell me about this. But the only way they're going to know this story is to go out and see this and hear the stories from these people. This Wednesday night at 7 at the Indie Cinemas. Now,
yes,
go ahead.
I was going to say, and your tickets are on cklu.ca. So that's easy for all of your listeners, cklu.ca, and you just click on the button and there you go. If you happen to be a person who doesn't like to get a ticket online, we have 2 outlets. We have one at Jet Landry on LaSalle Boulevard, and we have another for the South Enders, Adoro Oils and Vinegars in the South End, so they will know where that is. So you can get your live tickets there. And if you absolutely haven't done anything and it's 6:30 on Wednesday night, we may sell you a ticket at the door.
Is there standing room if it's packed, kind of thing?
Well, it just, it really makes it easier. People coming into a theater, if you have your ticket, you show your ticket, you walk in, it just makes the whole job so much easier. So we, of course, prefer people having tickets ahead of time.
And when we were deciding like when to kind of have you on and whatever, I always think the closer to the show, the better, because myself, I'm more of a last minute kind of a person with things like that, because people say, hey, can we do this thing 2 weeks from now? And really, honestly, I really can't commit to a lot of things because so many things kind of happen in my life with, my family and close friends and things like that need me for whatever reason. And so it's hard for me to commit. So, and I know a lot of people are in the same boat. So this is like 2 days from now. So you should be able to schedule, even someone like me can schedule 2 days from now. And it's going to be such a great, experience. And just stories are great. Everything is stories. Like we watch movies because there's stories. We read books because there's stories. Like, and anyone worth their weight or whatever, even journalism, you're going to want to have a story to what you're saying to have people listen. Headlines get your attention, and then the sub headline needs to kind of draw you in more. It's all about stories. Yeah, it's so important. And then also to feel a connection to people in our community that, we know these people. Like we see them on the news, we see them, hear them on the radio, whatever. And here they are, they're sharing an intimate, maybe sometimes, very embarrassing thing that happened to them or whatever. And it makes them more human, and you get to know them a little bit more. Now, are you going to be recording these at all, like video or audio? Because they could live on afterwards somehow.
I am so happy that you asked that question. Last year, doing this for the first time, it hadn't even dawned on me whether we should record it or not. Maybe it was way back in my brain, especially because CBC Radio was very interested in the stories. And one of the storytellers had a really kind of a life-changing experience. And I had taught her when she was 14 years old and in grade 9, and Shannon Patatagoose is her name. And I said, Shannon, what are you doing this weekend? And she said, oh, I'm going off in the bush by myself for 3 days. And we talked briefly about it. It was cultural. It was part of her heritage as an Indigenous person. When she came back to school on Tuesday, I said, how was your weekend? And she said, it was fine. And that was pretty well all she'd say. So here we are, 30 years later, I approached Shannon and I said, are you ready to tell that story? And she said, yes, I am now ready to tell you about my 3 days in the woods. She said, are you recording this? Because I won't do it if you're recording it. And yeah. I thought, well, yeah, you're right. This is a shared moment. So if you are not in that audience on Wednesday night, you will never have the opportunity ever to hear these stories. And if she hadn't asked me directly, I might have wavered at the last minute and thought, oh yeah, let's just record these. No, we are not.
Wow. Okay. Well, it gives an exclusivity to it, kind of thing. And if you don't go out and go to the event, you won't hear these stories. Now, what I would do is secretly record them. So that way in the future, you can approach some of these people and say, maybe it's part of a podcast or something in the future, but, maybe not, it won't be released for like a year from now. So you have to wait a whole year to hear these stories, but that's just me because stories are so important. And, I do understand the importance of stories. Even myself, I'm a spiritual person. I read scriptures and things like that. And stories go back to the beginning of mankind. Like it's what resonates in us. And so these are people in our community that I would really hope that it would be recorded. But at the same time, how important it would be to get out and see these people sharing their stories, right? So it does have that exclusivity to it. So I would hope someone would just if you're interested in this, or even if you just want to support CKLU too, you can just donate. If you're like, okay, well, I can't make it out there, you can still make a donation to CKLU. You can say, hey, I'll buy tickets for someone maybe who can't afford to go, something like that. And that would be much appreciated because it's all to support CKLU. And I like the way it brings community together as well, because that's exactly what CKLU does. It brings community together. It's our campus and community radio station. And this event goes so well with that, because we have a lot of stories that are shared through different shows on CKLU as well. Now, this event won't become a show, as we heard from Judy already. So you have to get out there and see in order to experience these stories and hear them. Okay, so with that, can we have an update on how the book is coming for Sudbury Arts Council?
Oh, I am so glad you asked that question. Yeah. So the last time I was on, we were talking about who would be the 50 people who have influenced the arts in the last 50 years in Sudbury and district. And this was a project done by the Sudbury Arts Council. We are going to be writing a book about these 50 people. And so we were reaching out to the community to say, please nominate anybody you think made a difference in the arts scene. Of course, we have no idea what kind of response we're going to get. And I thought, oh my goodness, we need to have 50 good people. Imagine if we only got 51 nominations. How terrible would that be? I am proud to say, could I have a drum roll, trumpet, please? 354.
Whoa. Wow. Oh, hang on. Oh, sorry. I was a little too late on that one.
Oh,
I didn't even realize I had voted in.
Yes.
It's okay.
So we are ecstatic. And the last, the deadline was in April 1st. And so in April, I've been kind of trying to just organize into just piles. I am not on the jury. I will not be doing any of the selecting, but had to go through all of these nominations because we asked for between 200 and 500 words. Well, some people only wrote, 5 sentences, and yet you could tell this was an extraordinary person, but the person submitting the nomination was clearly not a writer and just thought, well, I'll just mention a few things. Yeah. So what we're doing right now is doing the research to fill out the nominations that are just short on information, so that when the jury gets them, everyone will be on what I hope is an even playing field, so that you don't discount someone just because the person didn't write enough.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the process of doing like how do you expand on this? Do you go back to the person who originally nominated and say, can you tell us more? Or do you just do who does the research to fill in the blanks?
You have really good questions, because we figure out, along the way, because I think, okay, first of all, we had a meeting last week and 3 of us divided up the pile. So I have about myself, maybe 20 people to research. And I haven't started that yet. But my first thing is going to be exactly what you said. I will contact the person who has nominated them and said, I'll say, your candidate is wonderful. Thank you for nominating that person. Could you please tell us a little more about how that person affected or influenced or impacted the arts community? So let's say out of those, say close to 20, I forget how many I have to do. Let's say that only 10 people respond. Well, now that's going to be my responsibility to now research the other 10 myself, because we're not going to not do it. So we'll figure that out along the way.
Okay. Well, we have somebody here saying, is this the Sudbury Arts person? And the answer is yes. If yes, how to see who got nominated? Are you somehow going to release all the nominees at some point or not?
That's an excellent question, because I have really puzzled with that myself. We have not yet, the nominations are closed, and we have not, we're not putting out that list. Some of the people that we had advising us about how to do this have been on juries for the Ontario Arts Council, Canada Council, the municipal government, and these are never published. You don't know who has not won. So we're kind of going with that model. So hopefully people will understand that, because I think sometimes it just maybe creates more problems than it does solve anything at this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it could, if I see my name on the nomination list, I'm like, I didn't even know I was nominated. Now it's like a sour feeling or whatever, oh, I guess I'm not good enough or whatever to make the cut. And
it is so hard to make these decisions, because you can always argue. I live my life, kind of on a fence in a shade of gray. So I can always kind of see both sides of what's going on, argue it from both perspectives. So you want to make the best decision you can.
Yeah, that's true. And you got to make a decision either way. And there's going to be good and bad points from each side of, could you have released the names of the nominees? There's some positives to it as well, because then it does show how many people actually influence the arts, because just because you didn't make the 50, it's still, you did a tremendous contribution. You made a tremendous contribution in so many ways. It's just for some reason it didn't make the cut this time or whatever. So yeah, so there are some positives of releasing it, and then there's some negatives too. But you got to make a decision either way.
Mhm.
And like you say, you're going with people who've already had experience with these types of things, and that's smart to do. When you're doing something, especially for the first time, you don't want to just reinvent the wheel. Judy, anything you want to leave with the audience with? To as you get the last word.
Well, I just hope that your audience will be intrigued enough to join us on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock at Indie Cinema. If you don't do it, there isn't a second chance. And I think you made a really good point is if they go online right now to cklu.ca and buy a ticket, if they can't go, they can either gift it to someone or they can say, that's my donation because I support CKLU. So that was a really good point.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I have a good point. It's few and far between, but every once in a while. Remember, the book, the cost. I had an idea. Speaking of that, of the cost to have the 50 for 50 for 50. Did that go anywhere at all? Like when you
Oh,
approached it?
absolutely. Absolutely. As soon as you said it, I thought, why am I being so cheap? Of course it's $50 for the book. Of course it is. So when that book comes out and it's $50, you can tell everybody that was your contribution. That was your idea.
So I'm somehow part of the 50 either way, even if I'm not one of the 50, I'm involved somehow. So that's really good. At least I feel a connection to the book. Had a question here from one of our audience here. I wonder if Judy would remember my son. He was in vocal jazz. So this is Pat
Well,
Saint.
first, yes, I was very close to vocal jazz at Sudbury Secondary School, being in the performing arts program for all of those years. And my own son was in the vocal jazz. My own son, Ryan, was part of that community. If your son was in the vocal jazz before 1998, then I will know. Beyond that, I will not. And sometimes I know faces and not names. I was emceeing a concert last weekend where the vocal group from Sudbury Secondary, they came on and sang a number. So I still kind of stay connected. So I'm glad that your son was part of that jazz group and that your son will have so many memories to carry forward. And if that listener is from the student was at Sudbury Secondary School, I'll let you be one of the first to know that Sudbury Secondary School is having a 40th anniversary of the performing arts education next September 19th, 20th and 21st, 3-day weekend in September, 40 years, so that maybe her son will come back. Now, the word isn't out to the public yet, so you're the first one that has the word, but we will have all of the forms, the registration, everything out in June.
Nice. And that's, you're the first, we're the first to hear that here now, as far as I know. Now, here's another person here. Miles says, there used to be a man in Massey. He's gone now, but was known throughout the country for storytelling on radio and television and went to schools all the time. His name was George Beath, looks like, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So that's interesting. So, yeah. So a little bit of, nationally known storytellers here. And that's the thing. Everyone's got a story. Even if you're not somehow able to say it sometimes, we all have stories. And
well, that's an interesting point, because if I said to you right now, what's your story? Like if you were asked to come on, what's your story? See, right now you're doing exactly what all of your listeners and viewers are doing is you're shrugging and you're going, I don't have a story. I don't have one. Like when I sat down with Marcus Schwabe, he says, don't even ask me. I don't have a story. I said, are you kidding? So that's our first gut instinct is I don't have a story, because we don't look upon ourselves as having anything extraordinary or special happen in our lives that might be worth telling. Well, you know what? We all have a story. We just have to find what your story is. Maybe someday you and I will sit down and I'll find your story as we talk.
I think some of the people here that were commenting were alluding to that, possibly that could happen at some point. Now, Pat is saying her son is Nathan.
Oh my,
Savory.
Nathan Savory. No,
Savory.
Nathan Savory.
Hmm.
Of course, I know Nathan Savory. Of course, I knew Nathan Savory. He has passed away. Very
Oh,
sadly, he has
oh,
passed away. He was one of the most talented singers that we had in that program ever. He did a recording of Northern Artist recording. He was in all the shows at Sudbury Secondary School. He was part of the quartet in The Music Man. Nathan Savory was something absolutely special, and I still think of him.
mm,
Carol and Otto and I were backstage all June last year, and we were putting up historic pictures all through the change rooms because there was no history there. And Nathan Savory is up on that wall that we did. So, yes, of course, I know Nathan Savory.
so I'm so glad, Pat, that you mentioned his name, so that way we can get some clarification there. And I'm sorry for your loss. Huge. I've also lost a child as well, so I do know a little bit about that. Everyone's experiences are different, but so amazing that he could live on in that way when he's so talented as well. Um, and yeah, it's sad to hear that, but at the same time, what a impression he's made on you, Judy. Is you know you.
Anyone who knew him, he made
Mhm.
an impression on. He used to come downstairs. He's very kind of quiet by nature, and
Mhm.
he would come downstairs to the drama area where I was, and with his friends, and he would hang out outside my room if he wasn't in vocal rehearsal. And so I got to see kind of a lot of him in that way, and he was just a lovely human being.
Awesome. And that's the thing. So again, we're going to be hearing these, stories that we never would have known if we don't go to see this event with these people that you are familiar with, most of them. And I think that's an element of this fundraiser as well. I mean, everyone's got a story. For this particular fundraiser, you want to have people that are kind of known in the community, because that's the draw, because you already are familiar with them. Everyone can tell stories. We all have an uncle who's a really great storyteller. He's got that sense of humor that everyone wants them to tell the latest jokes or whatever around the table. So we all have that in our family, but these are people in our community that most people are familiar with, and that's why I believe they've been kind of chosen for this fundraiser, and they are also people that are keen on giving back to the community as well, and so sharing their stories for this really worthy cause of keeping the lights on and the airwaves open for our campus community radio station, which is so important for Sudbury. So it's so great that these people have, they're giving of their time and sharing these, and hopefully they get something from it as well, from sharing, because I think that's part of it. When you share your story, you also, it's reciprocates with the audience, right?
It's funny, after the first one, I had three people run up to me after the show last June saying, I have a story. I can tell it. I can tell you a
Exactly.
story. It really draws things out. The other thing that you just mentioned about supporting CKLU, I don't know if your viewers and listeners know that CKLU functions only through fundraising. It costs a ton of money to have a tower where you can broadcast. And so if you want these things to continue, it's only through fundraisers now that we're getting money. So please do contribute and join us.
For sure. And then one last thing, I'm just trying to get the comments here as we are going through, that are, some people are commenting or talking to each other, which I have to moderate through. And then some are for you. And Miles is asking if you remember a Sonia Dunn.
Oh my goodness, Sonia Dunn, like, she is iconic. So if you go back to the 60s, the 1960s, she was not only a storyteller, she was not only a folk singer, she was not only an educator. She was one of the first women that I would see on television way back when it was called CKSO TV, and she had her own show, and she sang, and the kids were on the show with her. She wrote books. She is one of these iconic. I'm going to say she would. I'm not on the jury, but boy, that'd be one person I'd be looking at, because she has a power, and her son Paul Dunn is still a wonderful, yes, that's her son,
Okay,
and
I'm
he is a
familiar with
wonderful
Paul.
musician.
Yes. Oh,
Mhm.
interesting. Wow, I wasn't even aware. So thanks for bringing that up, Miles. And I think that's the reason for this book too, right? Is to just kind of make these connections of things, and it's in line with stories too. It's history, so things have happened, and you need to keep it alive somehow, and educate ourselves into how we got where we are. Because I know Paul, but I wouldn't have known that his mom was already preceded him with greatness in terms of songwriting and storytelling and things
Well,
like
the
this.
other thing too that I mean, I can just go on about Sonia Dunn, but she's still alive. She's in her 90s. She's still
Wow.
alive. She was one of the people. There are 5 people responsible for the Sudbury Theatre Center being in existence and pushing forward and raising the money. And Sonia Dunn was one of those people that her picture was up on the Sudbury Theatre Center wall for years.
Interesting. Yeah, there's so much rich history that we have here in our city, and it needs to be kept alive. And yeah, so, and again, Pat, sorry for your loss. With that, I never would have known. And that's again that's why it's really important. Not only stories, conversations, keep conversations going, communicate one with another. We're getting to be in a kind of divided world. I think we need to make the effort to work, you know, to do our best to keep communication and conversations going, and to be respectful with each other, and really realize we're all in the same kind of boat, so to speak. And there's so much richness that we can take out of life instead of focusing on negative things all the time, that we can get together as a community, support the community, and be one, really, like celebrate the things that make us who we are. And that's what we're doing here. Okay, Judy. So there's a great conversation. We can, like you said, we could probably talk all day, especially if we were to talk about each of the 50 at some point. You know what I mean? If we, maybe that could be a podcast in and of itself, like at least a limited one where
Well,
okay, here we go.
no, no, I don't have time, but
Okay.
but right now there is another fundraiser in the works
Okay.
that will happen at the end of November, maybe beginning of December next year. When it actually is, when we're ready to announce that, I'll be talking to you, and at that point, then I can give you an update in the fall about what's happening, who the 50 are.
Oh yeah,
How about that?
exactly. Exactly. That would be so cool. And you never know, maybe I could get together some people and do a side project and just have an evergreen series, like a podcast to go along with the book, where it's some video and some maybe even samples of their songs. But that's what we had in mind anyways for the library, right? For the arts, is to have an interactive section or something like that where people can go and
Mhm.
experience some of these people's works.
So right now, our focus is the book, and
Yeah.
there's also the business part of that, which is raising the money to do the book. So that's
Mm,
part one. Once that, and I have no doubt that's going to be accomplished. And once the book is published, part two will be, let's take it a step further. And now let's get something in the new cultural hub downtown, and let's get an interactive thing that will live on for years.
right on. And that's in the future, but we know just this Wednesday night to get out and support this cause and be very entertained at the same time. And while you're supporting something, you're having an amazing experience and being entertained at a level that's very unique. It's this thing doesn't happen every day. This is a very unique experience and event. So do your best. All you got to do is go to cklu.ca. It's that simple, and purchase the tickets. Whether you're going to go yourself or you want to give them as a gift to someone else, maybe people in your family who love this type of thing, and it's very family friendly, I would think, right, Judy? Is that one of the?
That's a really good point. Thank you for mentioning that. Every story is tellable
Hmm.
to every age.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
there is certainly one story that borders on puberty, that's for sure. But what's wrong with bordering on puberty?
Who hasn't? Yeah, yeah. When we get to that age, that's something everybody experiences, and that's just a part of life, really. So everyone can relate, and that's the thing. So tickets are how much again?
$25.
$25 a ticket. You can find it on CKLU. It's 7 o'clock, Indie Cinemas. And if someone doesn't know where Indie Cinemas is, how can they get there?
Well, if you know where the downtown Sudbury Public Library is on Mackenzie Street, it's on the same side of the street, just a little bit further up the hill on the right-hand side. It used to be an old school, Louis Gonzague it was for years and years and years. And you're right directly across from Sudbury Secondary. So if you know where the library is, you know where Sudbury Secondary is, you'll find it no problem.
And it's right across from the auditorium in Sudbury Secondary. Like if you've ever gone to an event at Sudbury Secondary, it's just right across the street from that auditorium on Mackenzie Street. So again, thank you so much, Judy, for being on. It's always a pleasure. It's always great. We're going to have you on again whenever the next thing is happening. And whenever you want to come on, you just have to email me, say, I got something to talk about. We'll have a conversation, and you're always welcome.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Judy. Have a great day.
You
Okay,
too.
bye. That was Judy Strawn. She's a mover and a shaker here in the city. If you haven't, if you don't know her, you haven't seen her around, well, she's been involved with so many different projects, and she has a show on Eastlink as well, and where she goes to different businesses and she kind of just experiences what the business does, just like you or I would do if we go in. She has fun with it. It's really entertaining, actually, and local. Now, I wasn't able to get everybody's comments up on the screen just because I wasn't sure how long we were going to be talking with Judy this morning. So I'll do my best to do that now. And good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being on and watching and listening. Really appreciate you. The show, again, the format of the show is kind of flexible, if anyone knows who's been on here for any period of time. It doesn't always follow the same format. A lot of times we'll just go through weather. We'll get some news headlines from what's going on in the community, and we'll do a deep dive into something that affects pretty much everyone in the area, the province, the world, kind of thing. But today, because we had our conversation with Judy, it just it took up the time of the show, which I think is great. I think it's for a good cause, and it is Sudbury centric, and it has something to do with keeping the station alive, which if it wasn't for that, then we wouldn't even really have the show on the radio. So hugely important for that. So, but I'd like to thank everybody who's chiming in and always having the conversation with each other each and every morning here. It's a great community, and I'm really grateful for you guys being on as we've accumulated this, it's not the hugest group of people in the world that we have that's commenting, but more and more I'm realizing as people share different things with me, there's some people that listen every day, and they just, they're, I don't know, too shy or whatever. They just don't comment for whatever reason, and that's perfectly fine. And we appreciate you as well. And shout outs to all you guys who kind of are in the background watching the show, listening to the show. And thank you so much for just being part of the community, whether it's Sudbury community and CKLU's community, or a further one where you are from Sudbury and you're just checking back in and you're part of the show. Thank you so much, everyone, for being on. And if you're able to get out and see the show this Wednesday night at 7 at the Indie Cinemas right across from Sudbury Secondary, do so. It's going to be a great show. And thanks, everyone, for having a conversation with each other here this morning. This is a platform to do that, is to just try to check in things that are important to us, share them, and try and make sense of the world that we live in, community we live in, as things get more and more complicated each and every day. Just it's a place to check in each and every morning and feel a sense of community. So again, thanks for being on. Remember to stay aware and share, take care. We'll be back same time, same place, on the same platforms, God willing, tomorrow morning. And stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU 96.7 FM. And have a safe and, safe and excellent beginning to your week. And Mondays aren't the greatest day for a lot of people, but have a great week this week, guys. And we'll see you on the flip side. Ciao for now.
Morning Shift.